Much of the ancient Dusodarians' poetry contains such lucinae or empty spaces. The USS Hera uses trionic initiators in the warp coil, and the Ferengi have already been accused of trying to bribe the Breen pilot into throwing the race at this year's Paleo, which is hosted by DS3, of course. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
Pretty pleased I got that in the first try.
I can't believe it. Pretty amazing.
I don't know if it made any sense. My name is Ryan T. Huskin. Today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 7, Episode 3, say it with me, Interface, written by Joe Manoski, directed by Robert Weimer. This was October 2nd, 1993. Where were you, and how are you today, Sirach?
I'm doing great. Thank you. October 2nd, 1993.
Yeah, that was a good month, maybe. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And visit us at patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show and be a part of this epic journey. All right, Sirach, I've told you many times that I think Season 7 of Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite season. However, I believe that you've never seen this episode, most likely. What'd you think of it?
I like this episode so far the most out of the first 3, I think, that we've seen in this season. The first episode was the second part of a 2-parter. The last episode was not that good. That was
Liaisons, yeah.
Liaisons, yeah. Not a big fan of Liaisons. But this one, I liked. I liked this one because it had elements of this kind of storytelling that I thought was, just more sci-fi, more Twilight Zone-y, a little bit of tech, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of, I guess, like borderline horror to some degree. So this had like elements to me of what is a good sci-fi story.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, Season 7 is my favorite season. This is probably my favorite episode of my favorite season of my favorite show. I think this should have, I can't. I actually don't really remember this episode. When I was watching it, I don't remember it at all practically. I remember a little bit like the imagery of his mom and this outfit, but I don't remember it basically at all. And man, I found this to be a tough watch for me. Like I wanted to skip ahead. I wanted to, it was surprisingly, I don't want to use the B word, but it was hard for it to keep my attention.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it though.
Oh, I liked elements of it. I didn't like all of it, but there's elements I liked. I did find it to be lumbering and slow moving, and I will accredit that to the director in my opinion.
Interesting.
I feel like it was just slow moving, and it could have been the tempo should have been a little bit faster to me, and that could have also been helped along with movement of the camera. But I like the idea of the interface. I like the idea of kind of remote viewing a location and being able to be present. It's a perfect way to. This particular science would be great to utilize if it was possible to be able to kind of holographically project yourself somewhere and also um, interface with wherever you are. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and
So
also
yeah,
the sensory of it, the fact that he was able to feel things, and it was just I was getting lost in. I'm just checking Robert Weimer here. I was getting lost in the logistics of it, where they're like, oh, his hands are burnt from it, and then they're explaining why, and I couldn't really understand why, and I'm trying to figure out how that's going to play into the episode later. And I assumed that the reason they're telling us that his hands could be burnt, even though he's just a holographic projection, was that so they could raise the stakes later and make us think that his life was really in jeopardy, because then if like there's a fire going on when he goes back over there, that he could actually burn and die. And that didn't even come to fruition. Like I was assuming that they're explaining to us the hazards of, you know, feeling things tactilely or tactilely, but none of that ever actually came into play or paid off. So I found
yeah.
myself.
There was a brief explanation on why his hands were burnt. They said the sensors overheated that were
Yeah,
in his hands, and so because he was feeling that, it caused the overheating of the actual sensors that were on his hands, and therefore he was burned by that.
right.
Um,
So then I thought that would mean that later on in the episode, this would be used to raise the stakes, so that now we're fearing for his life because he's down on this ship, and maybe there's a bigger fire, and now they're like worried, like, hey, now his whole body can be burned, or you know what I mean, like something like that. But it never really came back into play. It was just kind of I wonder if that was like like a victim of a different rewrite or something, where it was like a remnant of what it was originally going to be, and then it changed. I don't know. It just didn't. It it never kind of came back to that for me. It never paid off. But I would love to hear more about your thoughts on this, because man, this is one of the first ones I actually really kind of struggled through. And like you, there were a lot of things I liked. So I'll get into that in a moment. But I don't know. You
well,
enjoyed it.
here's the thing. You're going to introduce Geordi's mom and dad in season 7 and the third episode, and I'm like, oh, he has a mom, and she's a Starfleet captain. Like, so
And
I'm
his
thinking
dad's
to
a
my,
commander, right? Suddenly we got a
yeah,
story here.
yeah, and I'm like, where was this backstory this whole time? That this is where they could have invested in this. This would have paid out if they had invested in this over the last 6 seasons prior to this, right? So if there were conversations with him and his mom, then we would have had a connection with her, and then her being lost would have meant something more to us. It's just like, how can we raise the stakes of this person, and so let's make it the mob, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
if Geordi, if it was just like, let's say it was just a woman on the ship coming out to him, right, and saying, hey, help me,
Well, then he would
then
have fallen in love with her.
he would have fallen in love with her, and then he would have went back and said, "There's this girl. She needs my help. She
And we're
loves
going to
me."
get married, and we're going to have all these kids, and I
Yeah,
just need to save her. And the way she looked at me when she said, help me, Geordi LaForge, you're my only hope. I just felt like there was this connection, and I already rented some
exactly,
holodeck space for us to have drinks with the violin.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you could have seen how people would have reacted to that. Like, oh god,
Yeah.
okay, all right, Jordy. It probably would have been the same thing. Go see Council Troy, but still, they needed it to be somebody that you would go at any lengths and measure to go and do something for, right? So
Hmm.
that made sense to me, right? It's your mom or your child, you're going to do whatever it takes. It's like, you know what? If it's and there was a great line in here. Look, even if it's a 1 in a million chance that I could save her, like, that makes sense to me.
Totally.
Like, it's just like,
That's where they got me the most. That was the part that I
yes,
was with them the whole way. Was I'm picturing my mom And I'm thinking, against all hope, against all odds, against all, repercussions for my job and career, you are going to
Yes.
say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help my mom, no matter how crazy it sounds. I mean, that's what we're going to do. And that
Yeah,
works.
that works for me. And so I think they set that up pretty well, except for the fact that once again they didn't give us any of these characters prior to this episode. It would have given us a little bit more at stake if we had just even briefly met this mom or his dad at one time before. Okay, but so they're introducing two characters, his mom and dad. So that was one thing. And then, but I understand the risk. And so it did make sense to me. And I'm going to tell you what I felt when I was watching this episode. And I don't know if this came across your mind, but this is what I was thinking. What is our friend Murdoch from the A-Team? He plays Barkley, right?
Barkley. Yeah. They should have called him.
No, this is my thing. In the episode with Barkley, when he was seeing interdimensional beings in the transporter beam as he was getting beamed up, he came back and said, "Yo, I saw these worms or something, right? And they were floating around." And everybody was like, "Oh, no, totally. I get it. No, you're right." Nobody doubted him. And he's the guy that it might not be true. I mean, because
He's got quite the imagination, we already know.
he's got a hell of an imagination. So, but everybody took his word for it, and they were like, "Let's investigate further. We have to do experiments, and we have to." Barkley saw something, and we
No
believe
matter
it.
how small the chance is, we
Yes,
have to look.
yes, we have to look. And I felt to me like LaForge wasn't getting that same kind of level of support that Barkley got in that transporter episode, because everybody was totally on board with, "No, Barkley, trust me, we know, don't feel bad, it's okay, we're going to find out what this thing is." And there was a little bit more of a support system around him, that they believed what he said. They took his word for granted. They didn't question him and say, But it felt like with Geordi, this guy's he's a real matter of fact practical thinker. He's a science guy, so he doesn't play in the realm of theory and imagination. He plays in the realm of possibility, physics, analytics, math, numbers, equations, you know. And so he's a very rational thinker. And you would, to second guess him at least a little bit, to the extent that he was, because everybody was like rolling their eyes, and like Riker was like, "Yeah, so you're saying she's alive, Geordi?" Like the way they were all not even giving him at least a suggestive thing. For example, this is, if I'm Captain Picard in that moment, I'm going to say, "I understand you, Mr. LaForge. Um, uh, Number one, have a class 3 probe sent down to the thing, and take measurements of the, do some, at least I can." And then Jordy's like, "A class 3 probe's not even going to make it past the atmospheric static, and da 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 da. At least there's a, I tried to help you type thing."
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? I didn't even feel a step in the direction of trying to help him. I didn't even feel like, "Okay, well, pull the ship around closer around here, over here, and let's scan the planet's surface or something. Let's find a weak spot in the atmosphere." Just some initiative on, let's double check this guy's story really quick, because this means a lot to him, and I don't want to be the one who has to tell him, that your mom may have been there. We abandoned her. I want you to sleep well at night. To me, that's what I would do in that position, even if I know he's wrong.
Yeah, couple things there. One, I think the Barkley episode was Realm of Fear.
Okay.
And by the way, excellent Picard impression, Sirach. But also, I could not agree with you more. In fact, I would one up it. I didn't even think of that specific Barkley episode. I just thought of the last 6 seasons. I was like, literally every time someone is working on a hunch or a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, or, well, do you really think that this and that? No, but it's it's Worf. We got to do it for Worf. We got to do it for Data. We got to do it for Crusher. Like, let's just, or they just put him on detached duty. They say, okay, tell you what, 48 hours of detached duty, and you could keep or something. I
Yep.
mean, I was so
There was
surprised.
zero support. They were like, go talk to the
Yeah.
counselor.
And put off that they were just like, nope, sorry, no. And when Data says, it's theoretically possible, but highly unlikely, highly unlikely, still would usually make Picard say, well, let's see it through then. Let's see. If nothing else, just for my senior officer, even if I think there's no chance in it. Yes, I was really surprised by that. It didn't seem to follow the same tone that we've seen for the last 6 seasons. And, not to play amateur, armchair writer, but I feel like there's actually more conflict created if Picard says, okay, yes, and puts his vote of confidence into Geordi against all odds when everybody knows it's 0% chance. If he says, let's do it anyway, because now it weighs heavily on Geordi, thinking they're all doing this for me on this hunch that's super unlikely, and he's got this guilt. I better hope it's right. Suddenly, there's a lot more conflict within Geordi, and Geordi is now like even more of a main character in this episode, like because he's got this internal conflict rather than just like him trying to save his mom and his friends don't want him to. Like, that's just weird. That didn't work for me. Just didn't work for me. It's better if they say, yes, we'll do it. And he starts to feel guilty over it, knowing like, dude, they don't even believe me. And they're just doing this to make me feel better. And it's probably, I don't know. Anyway, I agree with you.
Yes. It makes it more interesting, especially if Picard jumps out there and says that, and Crusher is against it. Like, you could kill him, don't you understand? The whole argument, like, you're risking his life, and he's like, if that's his decision, then I stand by him, and this and that, and all of these kinds of moral debates about, does he have the right to have that question answered in his mind?
And that leeway, they've given Data that leeway when Data's like, I have to go find out who my father is. And, and Worf goes, I have to go find out if my parents are really on that planet. And they say,
yes,
that's unsafe and we can't justify it. You know what? Fine, go for it. You go find your parents, Worf. I mean, like, and then Geordi, they're like, Geordi, just look, she's probably dead. Can we just... And then Geordi's like,
but there's no body. What
and Geordi's like,
about? He's like, he's
please.
getting upset.
And they're like, no. It was almost like Q was going to pop up and be like, you figured out. Because not only did Picard not have his back, but Troy didn't have his back. Geordi's own dad was just like, hey, man, so, I mean, no big deal, but I guess you heard the news about mom. Yeah. Anyway, you're going to try to find... No. We're going to have a memorial. I was like, does nobody care? Like, even his own dad did not seem to care. I was like, what is... I just didn't like the tone of this episode.
Somebody should have just sat him down and said, Geordi, your mother was a bitch. We're not going to let that.
Yeah, nobody. She's actually secretly gone off to the Nyberide Alliance and did not want us to tell you because she doesn't like you. She wants to be left alone.
I honestly, it was way too casual how they were talking about it for me. No one supported him. Even the way Troy was looking at him, in her facial expressions, it was very like
cold,
combative, cold, angry. It wasn't empathetic. It wasn't somebody who's like, I understand, Geordi, how you feel, but you have to you must know that your mother, something like that.
That's a very good impression too.
I'm just saying, you got to do something like that. Instead, she was looking at him like, like just totally in disbelief. And he had a good argument. One, it's possible. We're watching Star Trek, so we've seen alien lights impregnate our main characters from
Hmm.
a strand of, we've seen everything. So it's possible. We know it's possible because everything's possible in Star Trek. So that's one. Number two, it's his mom and he wants to settle his heart. It's like if you had a search party and you're looking through the woods and you're like, well, what about over that ridge? And they're like, there's no way you could have been over that ridge. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
but I just will.
it's too high. She with her arthritis, nah.
Yeah, but and you're like, I just want to look on the top of the ridge. No, we don't want to
No,
walk all
I'm
the
giving
way
you
to
a
the
direct
top.
order to not go find your mom over that
Yeah,
ridge.
yes. Instead of just saying, all right, how long is it going to take? What, 4 hours to walk up the ridge? We'll wait for you. Go
Hmm.
walk up the ridge and look around and settle your heart. That basically it was that easy for them to figure out. It wasn't like there was a pressing matter somewhere else. They had to leave the sector. They were actually working on the general vicinity. He's
Yeah.
basically saying, can you just turn the telescope over that direction and just a little bit to the left? They're like, no.
Nope, Geordi, we need you to work on that, report from last
Yeah,
Tuesday, and
yeah.
we can't have you trying to save your mom and
We're
300
trying
other
to,
lives and
yeah,
300 other people.
yeah. We're trying to salvage this ship. Don't you see? We need to tow it to a auto body ship repair place. So we're triple A of this quadrant right now, and we're doing a tow job. Instead, we can't. No, we can't save
What's a
your
toe
mom.
job? Uh, you know what? Let's take a break real quick, compose ourselves, and we'll be right back on the seventh rule.